hike. It's no picnic. Treacherous terrain. Takes a whole day.
Sure, some crummy old mountains that are fishing for 2 weeks sounds just swell.
Well, you don't have to go. The world is not going to give them a break. Neither should I.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you? Thanks
I'm
for
very well,
having
thank
me.
you. No, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I mean, well, I love the film, first of all. Congratulations. It's so well done. I
Thank you.
got the chance to speak to Luke the other day as well. You couldn't have
He's
found a
fun.
better actor. He's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, he's
He's
the same
also
age as
really
my oldest son, who's not very old,
Oh, really?
15, 16. And it was like, I was like speaking to someone the same age as me. It's just insane.
Yeah,
No, but he's right.
he's also a very good human. So he's a great work ethic, good human, and just very fun.
No, it's fantastic. So, I mean, obviously, the first question that I want to ask you is, how did you get involved in this specific project? Because it wasn't a story that I was specifically. I mean, I'm not from America, so maybe that's the reason for my ignorance now about the story now. But was that something? Were you aware of this story, or was it something that you found out about when the scripts crossed your desk?
Yeah, no, I'd never heard of it either. And I'm also sort of an international kid. I grew up overseas, so I'm not like not very in tune with American history. Let's put it that way, because I didn't grow up going to elementary school here. And this story is very specific to New England. So when I got the script, I just saw the title. I saw that Stallone was involved in it, and that they had incubated the story in-house essentially, because Stallone obviously makes movies about perseverance.
Yeah.
He's one of the original underdogs, so to speak. And he'd never made a movie about perseverance from a child's perspective before. So that's how it came to him. And then it came to me, I think because they were looking for a director with a certain acumen for the outdoors. Most my other like micro budget features I directed were very much kind of roll in the mud type movies. So I think I fit the bill, and this would obviously be my first bigger film.
Sure.
Yeah, so it came to me that way, and I went through a pretty boring interview process at first for about 3 months against other directors, but then the interview process culminated with me being flown to northern Maine and having to hike the titular mountain as like a final test. And so I'd never done a hike that hard before, because it's known as the hardest non-technical day hike in America. And I'd never heard of this mountain before I read this script. And I definitely underestimated it. I showed up with, $40 Walmart hiking boots thinking, it's fine,
Piece of cake. Yeah.
piece of cake. And I still made it, but my toes hurt for about a week afterwards.
Well, at least you didn't wear some. At least you didn't wear some sneakers from the 1940s, so you were in luck there.
No, and apparently still don't do that. But yeah, in the script itself, I just I saw a movie that I hadn't seen in a long time, movies that I kind of grew up with, White Fang, and every this past weekend since it's come out, people text me, oh, it reminded me of this movie from my childhood, and then one of them was like Homeward Bound, which I thought was kind of cool, or Black Stallion. So it reminded me of those films. I'm like, oh, we need one of these again, a PG-rated live action movie that speaks to very simple things, which are family and hope and community. And that's kind of what drew me to it.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing that I finished on with Luke the other day was him being so young and so used to the current state of things, the technology and everything. He learned how important it is to share time with family and just kind of live the moment, man, which I thought was really, really quite touching, really, from a 15-year-old kid. Yeah.
Well, he never told me that. That is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
That is
There
very
you go.
nice. Took that from him. Yeah, he's a horrible texter, so I guess that makes sense. But that's good. It's good that he's a horrible texter.
But I think that comment came from, I was talking to him about what I mean, like you said, this film it does bear resemblance to quite a few sort of these kind of films in that realm. But at the same time, what I really appreciated about this one was the fact that even though he doesn't share a lot of screen time with his father, that relationship that they share, the kind of cold, hot chemistry that they share there, really kind of resonated throughout the film. As the filmmaker, as the director, how difficult was it to keep that kind of that underlying relationship in the frame, if you will, even though they weren't both together?
Well, it was actually quite easy because I designed the movie that way.
Right.
In the scripting process, I didn't write the original draft. It was beautifully adapted by Luke Paradise, but then I came in and kind of added my own voice to it, as directors tend to do. And then in the design of the shots, I'm a big preparer. Like, I love every single thing is prepared. And for example, there's that scene. I wanted to make sure that visually we captured that cosmic connection between parents, even though there's a huge geographical expanse between them. So, a prime example is that those two shots of them waking up and the camera's tilting up with them and you're cross-cutting, that was all designed. And,
Right.
and luckily it came together in the editing room very beautifully, but it was something that I wanted to make sure that, this movie is about male vulnerability to some degree, and to some degree, very overtly, if you really want to get into it. And I wanted to make sure that through line was there. So it was important. It was important for that to all be there, and for them. There are very simple things the actors do. I've never actually talked about this in an interview, but the actors in an accident. I love when accidents happen in a film, and you're like, "Ooh, wow!"
Also happy accents.
Where you can feel the actors are synergistically kind of molded together, even though there's never been a conversation about it. And there are these two scenes where one with the boy and one with the dad, where they're sitting on the porch and they're different scenes, completely disconnected, and they're both with the mother. And both actors are holding ferns in their hands and picking the leaves off of them. And I didn't plan that.
I just, yeah.
Those two actors
That's,
were just connected. Maybe they talked or something. I don't know. But I remember seeing that in the editing room and going, oh my God, that was beautiful.
wow. No, and
Yeah.
also, I mean, I think that the reason that I picked up on kind of this relationship between the father and son was because afterwards, was it at the end, in the end credits you mentioned that he was very grateful to his father for what he'd learned from his father. I think it was, I can't remember, but I read that
Yeah.
somewhere. And then I looked on internet, and everywhere seems to suggest that it was Don's having been in the Scouts that helped him to survive. And I couldn't really find any mention online that his father was helping him. That was something that Luke told me as well. He said that it was very important for you that you picked the audience picked up on this that wasn't really mentioned anywhere online or in books or
Yeah.
anything like that.
I think the father relationship kind of got lost in the ether, in the annals of history a little bit. And when the book came out that was adapted from the real life experience, it was very much focused on the scouts and faith and all these things. But we had this we had all this archival footage of documentary footage of people in the family members talking about the relationships with the family. We also very much know, like, all the family of Don Fendler have endorsed this movie, so we use them as research materials, and they let us in to the actual kind of truth of what was going on. So the relationship within the father and the son came out of that anecdotal evidence that we got, and so you can't find a lot of it because it's mostly just spoken. It's word of mouth and things that we discovered as we were researching the project.
I mean, you mentioned that obviously suddenly Don passed away a few years ago, about 8 years ago, or 2016 now, yeah. But you had, yeah, like you said, you were able to speak with the family. I know that they were kind of very helpful in helping you recreate the story now, but at the same time, it must have been very, very difficult for them to help to kind of reenact in a way this story that they went through, even though it was such a long ago and not directly, it wasn't direct family members, I imagine, that you spoke to. But it must have been, I guess, 50% difficult to speak about, painful, but at the same time, maybe cathartic in a way as well. Did you find?
Yeah, when we premiered the film this summer, we went back we went back to the source, and we went to Maine and premiered it with a huge, like, 800 people. It was incredible, and 20 of his descendants were there, and they came up to me afterwards and they said, you know, you captured the essence of what our father tried to put across to the world, and this movie will be a great companion to his legacy. And I think for them, that was the cathartic thing, is like, it doesn't need to be completely accurate, though it is pretty accurate, other than the obviously metaphysical elements in the movie. But I think that they, the youngest little brother in the film is still alive, and he saw it. And he's 94 years old now.
Wow.
And he said, that's what it was like. That's how my mother was. And that's what, so we had a good sense going in of what these characters were like. And I think we've, you know, I think we've captured the essence of who Don Fendler was and what his family was like. Yeah.
I can't even imagine what must have gone through your mind just before putting this film on to, like you said, the 94-year-old brother. I mean, that sensation must have been like so hopeful that he's going to love it, but so, I don't know what the word, but just kind of worried that it wasn't going to click with him.
I mean, look, the movie is opening. It's open nationwide this weekend, and it's playing in every single cinema in Maine. And that unto itself is terrifying because
Oh,
it's so close to them, right? And but all we've really had is good feedback. I think there are schools that have sold out theaters for 2 weeks straight, and they're taking the middle school children, and that makes me happy because that's what I made this movie for, you know.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully they'll take away the message like Luke took home with it from the film of being
Yeah.
kind of get closer to his family and friends and speak more than text them on the
Yeah, I
telephone.
mean,
Yeah.
in the end, it's still an independent film, and even though there's a Stallone factor, it's still an indie, and so it's going to take time to get discovered. And I tried to make something that, while it is a throwback to these movies that I grew up with, I also tried to make it timeless in a sense, which is why the cinematography is the way it is and whatnot, so that 10 years down the line, or even next year, this will be on streaming, and somebody, oh, let's watch this film, and then you can. I think that themes are very universal,
Sure, yeah.
and so I think it'll just keep echoing. And the period piece of it is incidental to the story, in my opinion.
But, I mean, saying that, I mean, obviously because it is set back then in the 1930s, late 1930s, I think it was, or 1939, you've got all
Yeah.
these types of clothes and certain types of tech that they didn't have back then. So, like you said, you wanted to make sure that it was a timeless film. How did you go about making sure that it remained evergreen, even though that you were going to kind of set it there, film it now, and think about people watching it in 20, 30, 40 times from now?
I hope people are watching it in 2040. That'd be great. It's the approach was, how do I keep this modern? And I think that is through the performances. I think the themes are universal. I think what's happening in the world right now, there's a lot of noise. And I think that the movie echoes kind of that time period. I hope not too much. So I think that was an entry point. But then the second one was, with every actor, I said, like, we're not trying to make a stodgy period piece. We're not trying to talk like this, like in
Yeah.
1939. And so just be modern, be a modern woman for the mother, like be strong and have agency. And with the dad, like the dad, Paul Sparks, came at it, playing, I think, a lot of fathers that people can relate to, somebody very closed off and stoic. But there's this modern man aching to burst out of him. And the same with the kid, with Luke. I was like, just be a modern kid. And if the tone is right and the themes are truthful throughout, I think that people will forgive the modernity of it. And I think, to me, that's a strong point, and it helps the movie be timeless and more accessible.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Obviously, you mentioned that obviously Sylvester Stallone was involved before you were even involved. Did you speak to him? Because I mean, obviously, we know that he loves with Barbara Production, he loves to kind of echo his own life story in a way, and the fact that I mean, when he made Rocky, he was so cocksure that it was going to be him that was going to play Rocky, and then he just kept going for it. And so I imagine this kind of was exactly the kind of thing he was looking for. Did you get a chance to speak to him about what he
Yeah,
was interested in this film and what he wanted people to get out of it?
he was supportive, very supportive, and also refreshingly hands off. And I think people forget, he's such an icon that he's almost transcended, pop culture in a way. It's like everybody, you can go to a village in Africa, and I grew up in Africa, so I know.
Right.
I know. I literally grew up in a village in Africa, so I know, like, Stallone was almost godlike to us. But people forget that he's an artist. He's
Sure.
an artist. And Rocky is an independent character drama, right? That also happens to be very broadly appealing. And so he allowed me to make a movie that was broadly appealing and spoke to his ethos, to the things he cares about. And at the same time, I got to throw in the occasional Tarkovsky reference and, Kubrick reference and like all that, and walkabout and be cinematic and a cinephile at the same time. And hopefully people, it's a movie that I think you have to be patient with. And he was totally on board with that.
Mhm. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, like the way you explained it, I can see this film going on to kind of have similar repercussions as Rocky, because it's like you said, it was like it started off like this grassroots film that just built and
Yeah,
built and
yeah.
built. So fingers crossed, this the same thing could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and and Hollywood doesn't make movies like this anymore. And I don't mean that in a, oh, we need more. I mean
Yeah.
that in the sense that it's universal and it's not a superhero film. And I've been getting a lot of messages over the last few days, like, thank you for making something that just isn't like wall-to-wall CG.
Mhm.
I'm saying that as I'm going to see the new Venom movie tonight, and I'll be
Well, I just
happy.
saw it, and I thought exactly the same thing when I came out. I was like, thank goodness for this kind of film. And there's a couple of other indie films that are like the top of my favorite films this year. Yeah.
But these films, unfortunately, just aren't given as wide of a berth anymore. And I hope that we come back to that somehow, that there's a sea change in the audience and that these movies can find a home and a home. And I rewatched Golden Pond on Golden Pond recently, and it's such a great film. And I went and I'm like, this was one of the like the top three grossing movie of the year it came out in the United States. Like this was a $300 million adjusted for inflation blockbuster.
Mhm.
Like that is mind-boggling to me. That would
Yeah.
never happen. Yeah.
And then
So
don't even get me started with the Clint Eastwood film that's in like about three theaters. What's going on there?
I saw it and it's good. It
And
could
I've
be
not
a,
seen it yet. I can't wait, but I just don't understand why it's not being released.
I don't know. I really don't
No
know.
idea, but I imagine because it's kind of this, it's not like you said, it's not CGI. It's not this huge bombastic kind of film that people want to see in cinemas. I don't understand it at all.
But it works, and I find myself sort of on a weird island because I want to make movies like The Verdict. Like those are my North Stars creatively, and I don't just want them to end up on streaming. Not that there's anything
Yeah.
wrong with streaming.
No, no, sure.
But being in a dark room, seeing movies like that, character pieces that on a broad scale, like those, So hopefully we'll get back to that eventually.
I hope so, because I mean, those are the kind of films that I just love going to see with an audience, and then kind of you go for a coffee afterwards and talk about it. Not
Yeah.
something that you do with Marvel movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, like this one, I want, ultimately, I made this because I want at the end of the day, and this has happened, which has been very gratifying. I want somebody to step out of the theater and call their loved ones and tell them that they love them. And I also want
Exactly.
maybe parents to go, how am I parenting? Am I doing a good job? Or maybe I should just go hug my kid. And like I don't think Marvel movies do that. No offense to Marvel
No,
movies.
no, no,
I
no,
enjoy
no, no. Yeah, sure, it's a
many
huge,
of them.
fantastic thing, and people love it. My kids love it, but no, exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But listen, just to finish off then. Luke said that he went through quite, he kind of went through the fryer and back, especially when it was raining torrentially. Can you just kind of briefly explain the kind of things that you were able to manage up? I mean, I know you didn't go back to the original site where everything happened, but it was a similar site, no?
Yeah.
How did you manage to recreate as much as possible? I mean, it sounds like you did go pretty overboard with certain things, like the torrential rain that Luke was telling me about
Yeah,
the
we
other day.
did. I never make an actor do anything I won't do. So I was always very
Right.
careful. Of course, I have a high threshold. So if you told me you need to jump out of an airplane to get the shot, I would do it. So you have to find somebody that'll match that energy. And knowing Luke, like if we would have told Luke you need to climb to the top of the actual mountain to shoot the scene, he would have done it. He would have. He would have. But I'm also not maniacal, and safety is very important on
Yeah.
films, as we've learned recently. So what we did is we built the mountain. We did climb the mountain and shoot on it. We took like a little B team and got B-roll, and we were up there in a storm. It was very fun. Um, but we also built an 80-foot by 80-foot replica of the peak, and we had giant fans and sprinkler systems and fog machines that just blasted these children for 3 days. And it was fun. Yeah, there are scenes that, hopefully it's effective because I wanted everything to be practical, where the boy looks like he's just, caught in a ravine being blasted by rain and water. And he was a trooper. We'd yell action, and then these fans would go and the wind would go, and he'd just be there being pummeled. But we were right there with him. Now we were in raincoats. I wasn't. I remember I was like, nope, I'm gonna be so I was just dripping wet. And the producer's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to. I'm like, no, he's suffering. I'm gonna suffer too. But I also get a small charge out of it creatively. So yeah, I tried to make that experience authentic for him. And again, like he leaned into it. We made these fake little Hobbit feet. You know, they were replicas of his feet that were basically flesh tone Crocs, and he could wear them when we were walking through the woods. And he didn't like them, and so he would take them off and walk barefoot and do all of his stunts barefoot. And he just insisted. And I'm like, I'm not responsible if you hurt your feet. He's like, I'm fine. He's like, I want to be in the kid's headspace. And so he really leaned into it. He ate real raw fish. He's a vegan. He didn't steal it, but the agreement was I'll bite it, I'll put it in my mouth, and then I'll spit it into a bucket. So he did that as well. Of course, I had to do it first. You know, again, like he's like, I'll do it if you do it. I'm like, okay, great. So he's great work ethic. And he's in there for the fun to get nitty gritty and play.
No, he's really into it. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing for how young he is, just how into it he was when I was speaking. It's fantastic. He's going to go well, he already has gone a long way, but he's going to go a really long way, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be, again, like when we auditioned 150 boys to play this role. And I told our casting director, Richard Hicks, the mandate was we need to find Christian Bale from Empire of the Sun.
Right.
We need to find a kid that we can watch without dialogue for long stretches of time, and Luke fit the bill. And it's pretty astonishing.
Fantastic. Yeah. Just to finish off, there's one thing that I just dawned on me again. One thing that I asked Luke as well was I was surprised that, I mean, the location, the setting is absolutely beautiful. When the sun comes out, it's beautiful, but at the same time, there's like this underlying dread there all the way through the film. How did you achieve that? Was that by chance, just because of him being in that situation? It just kind of led to that, or was there something specific that you actually went out of your way to create that kind of?
I have to give credit to the cinematographer for that. He and I had long discussions about what we wanted the movie to feel like. We obviously wanted to go in that kind of Spielberg meets Terrence Malick direction. If I were to categorize like what I aspire to, it's a combo of those two ethos, kind of broad, audience appealing, but also artful, a lot of natural light. But I think that sense of dread you're talking about is all the fog in the movie. There's a lot of fog in the movie. Even in the interior scenes in the home, there's fog, and that's all fake. Most of it's fake fog. Sometimes we lucked out and there's actually real fog. But most of the times we have these tubes of death, they're called, that spew fog everywhere, and you hide them in the brush. And we spent a lot of time waiting for the wind to die down to make sure we had that sort of pall kind of hanging over the film, as if from the second the kid gets lost, he is wandering through the afterlife. And it is very much
it's like he's in limbo,
Odyssean journey, so to speak. And so that's all very intentional. I have to give full credit to the design team and the cinematographer for pulling that off.
A treat. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, well, listen, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to keep you any longer.
No, this was
delightful. It's already out.
No,
it's just been great. I mean, I've had so many questions about this film because it's like I said, I loved it to bits. I just love these kind of indie films that just bring so much story and just keep you to kind of let you sit down after the film and just kind of mull over it for half an hour and just kind of think about the things. It's just, you don't get that so much lately. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your time. Wish you the best of luck with the rest of the run of the film, and I hopefully speak to you again sometime soon about another project.
It'll be my pleasure to come back on. So
that's fantastic. All right, Andrew, have a great day. Thank you so much for speaking to me. All the very best. Cheers, then. Take care.
I always told him when things get tough, press on.
Your brother is really stubborn.
Press on.